Summer in Cathedral City is worse than death. The sun melts away what little strength I have left, and the air conditioner in my house hums like an airplane. Another Tuesday greeted me with the usual silence. It's been 3 years since Elaine passed away, but I still wake up on my side of the bed. It's as if her body still occupies the right side. It's ridiculous, really. I'm 65 years old and I'm acting like a little boy. My usual breakfast: toast, eggs, coffee. The coffee's too bitter, but I don't remember how Elaine used to make it. She added something. But what? Milk? Cinnamon? Everything is fading from my memory, even things that seemed indelible. I take a quick shower, an old habit. When we were young, Elaine and I were paying off a mortgage and saving on everything. Now the house has been ours for a long time, and we have enough money for utilities, a new car every 5 years, and a vacation if we feel like it. But habits remain. Today I'm inspecting 3 sites. In 30 years as a construction site inspector, I've seen it all. Contractors are always trying to cut corners, using cheaper materials, ignoring safety rules. Young people don't understand that every violation is someone's potential tragedy. When that school collapsed in the 90s, I spent 3 days clearing the rubble with my bare hands. Since then, I can't sleep peacefully if I miss even one violation. The phone rings as I'm getting into my used but well-maintained Ford. The screen displays Reggie, my son. Our last meeting a month ago ended in another argument. What does he want now? "Hey, Dad, how's it going?" His voice sounds unnaturally cheerful. "Fine," I reply curtly. I don't like these ostentatious pleasantries. Poppy and I were thinking of stopping by tonight. "How about dinner together?" So that's what it is. They used to disappear for months, and now it's the 3rd time in 2 weeks. Ever since Poppy got it into her head to open a junk shop, calling it a vintage boutique, they've become suspiciously attentive. "I'll be late. 3 properties today." "That's okay, we'll wait." "Poppy will make your favorite lasagna." "My favorite." I can't stand lasagna. Elaine knew that, but apparently didn't bother to tell her son. Or maybe he just doesn't care. "Okay," I sigh. "I'll be there by 7. The first site is a 16-story building on the outskirts. The developer is cutting corners everywhere. The rebar is thinner than it should be. The concrete is diluted as if it were a house of cards rather than a residential building. I issue a fine and demand that the violations be corrected. The foreman, a kid who's barely 25, glares at me. I don't care. Better that he hates me than have the families of the victims curse his name later. The second site is the renovation of an old theater building. Everything is different here. The owner is a lover of antiquity and spares no expense on the project. Everything is done properly, even with a margin. I approve the documents with satisfaction. I wish there were more like this. I arrive at the third site already tired. A supermarket on the main street. Half of the workers are illegal immigrants. It's obvious at first glance. I make a comment to the foreman, a gray-haired man with a face red from constant drinking. "Show me the people's documents." "Listen, Teddy," he lowers his voice. "Maybe we can come to an agreement. They're good guys. They work like beasts. They just don't have the papers. You understand? Times are tough." I shake my head. "No, Bert. You asked last time, too. And the time before that. The law is the same for everyone." "Come on," he pats me on the shoulder. "Your son Reggie understands." When he came to our warehouse, he took care of everything. No problems, I frown. Reggie works in a construction store, handling deliveries. It doesn't surprise me that he turns a blind eye to violations, but it's still unpleasant. "I'm not my son," I snap. "Either you show me your documents or you pay the fine." Bert spits and goes to look for the papers, which I'm sure he doesn't have. I write him a ticket, ignoring his complaints. 30 years in this profession have taught me one thing. You can't compromise your principles. For anything. I get home around 7. My neighbor's son, Pete, waves at me. He's a good kid, sometimes helps out with the lawn. His father left 5 years ago, and his mother is raising the family alone. I pay him more than I should for his work. It's not out of pity. I just know the value of honest labor. A beat-up Hyundai Reggie is parked outside the house. My son could afford a better car, but all his money goes to Poppy's crazy schemes. First, she decided to become a florist, then to open a catering company. Now it's this vintage shop. She never finishes anything. And Reggie is like a doormat. He indulges her in everything. They're sitting in the living room. Reggie is holding a bottle of my favorite whiskey, the whiskey I save for special occasions. Poppy is on the couch, flipping through some magazine. When they see me, they both jump up with feigned joy. Dad! Reggie hugs me. He smells like my whiskey. Hello, Teddy, Poppy chirps. Dinner's almost ready. Poppy is always like this. Too loud, too bright. Red hair dyed an unnatural shade. Tattoos on her wrists. Ever-changing clothing style. Today she's wearing something reminiscent of a 1950s outfit. Probably watched too many old movies again. I'm going to take a shower, I say, not responding to their greetings. Then we'll have dinner. I go upstairs to the bedroom. Everything here is just like Elaine's. Her dressing table with bottles of perfume that I can't bring myself to throw away. Her books on the bedside table. Her jewelry box. Sometimes I open this box just to look at the things she loved. A gold bracelet, her favorite piece of jewelry, lies in the most prominent place. She wore it all the time, taking it off only before the operation, and then she never put it on again. I take a shower and get dressed. I go downstairs for dinner. The table is set, lasagna steaming in the center. Reggie pours wine, also mine from my stash. I hardly drink myself, but I love good wine. I've been collecting it for years. Looks good, I say, sitting down at the table. I tried, Poppy smiles. I know how much you love Italian food. I don't. Elaine loved it. But I don't correct her. I just nod. We start eating. The lasagna is too salty. How's your store coming along? I ask Poppy just to say something. Her eyes light up. Oh, wonderful. I found a great space on Main Street. The rent is steep, though. But what a location, Reggie chimes in. Non-stop traffic, right, Dad? I shrug. Rent in the city center is serious money. Are you sure you can handle it? They exchange glances. Something in their eyes alarms me. Well, we have a plan, says Reggie, looking away. Poppy found vintage clothing suppliers, signed preliminary contracts. Everything is falling into place, Poppy adds. I feel like this is my chance, just like floristry and catering and photography classes, which she quit after a month. But I keep quiet. It's none of my business how they spend their money. Although something tells me it's not just about their money. How's your house? I ask, changing the subject. Is the roof still leaking? Yes, Reggie grimaces. But that can wait. Right now, all our resources are going to the store. It's clear with them. Zero practicality. Reggie takes after his mother. He's just as much of a dreamer. Elaine was always building castles in the air, planning, fantasizing, and I was always the one with my feet firmly on the ground. After dinner, Poppy volunteers to wash the dishes, and Reggie suggests we watch a baseball game together. I'm not a big sports fan, but I agree. It's all strange. Usually they rush to leave right after dinner. During a commercial break, Reggie suddenly says, Dad, I've been thinking, Mom left some jewelry. It's just lying around. Maybe we should sell it. No one wears it anyway, so that's it. They're a reminder of your mother, I reply calmly. They'll stay where they are. But that's silly, he insists. Gold is getting more expensive, and these things are just gathering dust. Mom would understand. This conversation is over, I cut him off. And tell your wife that if she needs money for her business, she should take out a loan like normal people do. Reggie blushes but says nothing. The game ends, and they finally get ready to leave. At the door, Poppy suddenly hugs me, a gesture so unexpected that I freeze. Thanks for the evening, Teddy, she says with a smile. We'll be back soon. When they leave, I stand on the porch for a long time. Something's not right here. Too much attention, too much fake happiness. I go back into the house and up to the bedroom. And then I notice. The drawer of the dresser is slightly open. I never leave it open. I come closer and examine the contents. Everything seems to be in place, but the order has been disturbed. Someone has definitely been rummaging through my things. I take out Elaine's box and open it. The bracelet is there, as are the other pieces of jewelry. Nothing is missing, but someone was rummaging here while I was in the shower. I sit down on the bed, lost in thought. Why would they do that? What are they looking for? And most importantly, which one of them had the idea to rummage through my things? I close the box and put it back in the dresser. From now on, I'll lock my bedroom when they come over, and I'll start paying closer attention to what's going on in my house. I often think about her in the evenings. When the house is quiet and even the old refrigerator stops humming, I take out the photo album and flip through the pages of our life together. Here is Elaine on our wedding day in 1981, wearing a simple white dress with lace trim. Not frilly, as is fashionable now, but form-fitting, emphasizing her slender figure. On her wrist is that very gold bracelet. I remember how she said then, "It will be my talisman in my new life." Elaine wore this bracelet almost constantly. She said it brought her luck. It was massive, with an intricate pattern and a small hidden lock. She said it was a family heirloom, passed down through the women's line. Her grandmother had brought it from Europe while fleeing the war. She sold everything except this bracelet. I never asked why she cherished it so much. Everyone has their own talismans, their own superstitions, and Elaine was superstitious. She never walked under a ladder and always knocked on wood. I remember how she insisted that we move out of our first apartment because she didn't like the energy field. I grumbled but agreed. I was willing to do a lot for her. Another photo shows Elaine holding newborn Reggie in her arms. 1983. She is smiling, but her eyes are tired. The birth was difficult, and the doctors feared for her life. But she made it through. Elaine was always stronger than she seemed. I remember how she clutched her bracelet, whispering something when the contraction started. It was as if she was praying to her talisman. I flipped through the pages. Reggie is growing up. We are getting older. Family trips, birthdays, Christmas. In every photo, the bracelet is on her wrist, a golden reminder of something that was important only to her. When she was diagnosed with cancer, Elaine took off the bracelet for the first time. "Take it," she said, handing me the box. "Keep it. When I get better, you can give it back to me." But she didn't get better. Chemotherapy, radiation, nothing helped. She was wasting away before our eyes, but she believed until the very end that she would pull through. And I believed with her. After the funeral, I put the bracelet in her box, which I placed on the dresser. Sometimes I took it out, turned it over in my hands, trying to understand what she saw in it. It was just an ordinary piece of jewelry, nothing special. Maybe it was the memories. The doorbell snaps me out of my reverie. I put the album away and go to open the door. Reggie is standing on the doorstep, alone, without Poppy. This is unusual. They always come together. "Hi, Dad," he shifts from foot to foot. "Can I come in?" I step back, letting him into the house. He walks into the living room and sits down on the sofa, awkwardly on the very edge, as if ready to jump up and run away at any moment. "Tea?" "Coffee," I offer, though I'm sure he'll refuse. "No thanks, I won't be long." I sit down opposite him and wait. Something has happened, that's obvious. Maybe money problems again? Or has Poppy pulled another stunt? "It's about my mom's things," he finally says, not looking me in the eye. "You see, Poppy found a great place for a store. We've already put down a deposit, but we still need money for the first batch of goods and renovations. And you've decided to ask for money again," I finish for him. He nods, still avoiding my gaze. I wouldn't ask, but this is a really good opportunity. Poppy has everything figured out this time. A business plan, a marketing strategy. She even found suppliers of vintage clothing from Europe. And what does Mom's stuff have to do with it? Reggie finally looks at me, guiltily, but with a kind of determination. Her jewelry, a gold bracelet, sapphire earrings. They're just lying around unused. Mom would want them to be put to good use. I am overcome with anger. Cold, calm, the kind that is scarier than shouting. Your mother would want you to build your own life, not live off someone else's property. And she certainly wouldn't want her things to be used for your wife's latest whim. It's not a whim. His voice takes on a tone of hurt, just like when I refused to buy him a toy as a child. Poppy is putting her whole heart into this project. Just like the previous 5? I smirk. How long are you going to indulge her whims? First a flower shop, then a photo studio, now this. What's next? He stands up, his face red with anger. I knew you wouldn't understand. You've never understood me or her. You're always criticizing and judging. But we just want to find our place in life. At my expense? At the expense of the memory of your mother? Jewelry is just stuff, he shouts. Not mom. She would want to help us. Get out of my house, I say, quietly but firmly. Right now. He leaves, slamming the door behind him. I remain sitting in the chair, clenching the armrest so hard that my knuckles turn white. The audacity, the incredible audacity. Begging, hiding behind Elaine's name. In the evening, still angry, I go up to my bedroom and take out the box. I open it and look at the bracelet. Elaine cherished it so much. I remember once when we were relaxing by the lake, she was swimming and suddenly screamed in panic that she had lost her bracelet. We dived for 2 hours until we found it in the mud. She cried with happiness, pressing the wet bracelet to her chest. It protects our family, she said. Without it, everything will fall apart. Superstition, of course, but she believed in it, and I believed her. I closed the box and put it away in the dresser. I shouldn't have snapped at Reggie. He was always weak and impressionable. Even in school, he had a string of failures. His classmates cheated him, and girls took advantage of him. Elaine always defended him. He's just trusting. There's nothing wrong with that. But I saw where it was leading, and I was right. Poppy is the last link in the chain of people manipulating my son. They met at some stupid contemporary art exhibition. She was working at a gallery at the time and pretending to be an expert. Reggie fell head over heels in love. Elaine was against the marriage, though she didn't say so directly. She's kind of slippery, Elaine told me after meeting Poppy for the first time. I can't explain it. I just feel it. But Reggie insisted and they got married. 2 years later, Elaine fell ill. Coincidence? Probably. But sometimes, on dark nights when I can't sleep, I think, what if Poppy is somehow connected to Elaine's illness? What if she deliberately poisoned her life, causing her stress that triggered the cancer? Nonsense, of course. Poppy is just a spoiled, flighty woman with delusions of grandeur, not a villain from a cheap detective novel. And yet, the next day, Reggie calls and apologizes. His voice is guilty, like a puppy that has done something wrong. I'm sorry, Dad. I went too far. We'll find another way to get the money. Okay, I reply dryly. Let's forget about it. Poppy wants to invite you to dinner on Saturday. As an apology, I agree, although I would prefer to spend the evening alone. But maybe it's worth trying to mend our relationship. For Elaine's sake, she would want us to be a family. On Saturday, at exactly 6 o'clock, I pull up to their house, a small bungalow in the suburbs. Poppy meets me at the door, wearing some kind of fancy dress, clearly vintage. Probably a sample of what she's going to sell in her shop. Teddy! She hugs me with exaggerated enthusiasm. I'm so glad you came. Reggie is in the kitchen, finishing dinner. I walk into the living room. The interior is a mixture of everything. An antique table next to an ultra-modern sofa, posters in second-hand frames on the walls. Typical Poppy's bad taste. Reggie comes out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. He looks guilty but hopeful. Hi, Dad. Glad you came. Dinner is accompanied by tense conversation. Reggie talks about work, Poppy about her plans for the store. I listen half-heartedly, nodding in the right places. The steak is overcooked, the potatoes undersalted. But I don't complain. I didn't come for the food. I've already signed the lease, Poppy chirps. It's a great location on Cherry Avenue, right by the pedestrian zone. A little pricey, but the traffic is worth it. How much, I ask, sipping my wine. It's not bad, by the way. Apparently, they splurged for my visit. $3,000 a month, she replies, and Reggie gives her a warning look. But it will pay off, I'm sure. $3,000, I whistle. Plus merchandise, repairs, advertising. Where did you get that kind of money? They exchange glances. Something's not right here. We took out a loan, Reggie says, but I can see he's lying. My son has never been good at lying. He blushes and looks away. Is that true? I look him straight in the eye. And the bank gave you a loan to start a risky business with your credit history? We had collateral, Poppy quickly interjects. My car. Your 2010 Hyundai? I smirk. I doubt it was valued at more than $5,000. Stop interrogating us, Reggie suddenly explodes. We invited you over for dinner, not an interrogation. I raise my hands in a conciliatory gesture. Okay. I'm just worried about you guys. The rest of the dinner passes in tense silence. After dessert, a store-bought cheesecake that Poppy passes off as homemade, Reggie offers me brandy in the living room. Poppy excuses herself to powder her nose. Listen, Dad, Reggie leans closer, lowering his voice. I know you're worried, but we've got it under control, really. Poppy has finally found something she really likes. Like the last 5 times? No, it's different this time. He shakes his head. She's studied the market, taken marketing courses. She's serious about it. Where's the money coming from, Reggie? I ask bluntly. He looks away. I told you, a loan. Don't lie to me. I'm not. He stammers, then sighs. Poppy has an investor, a former client from the gallery. He believes in her taste. It sounds a little more plausible, but something still doesn't add up. If she has an investor, why ask me for money? Why be interested in Mom's bracelet? Poppy returns, and the conversation shifts to neutral topics. I finish my brandy and get ready to leave. At the door, Poppy suddenly says, By the way, Teddy, I wanted to ask, that gold bracelet of Elaine's, it's antique, right? What era is it from? I have no idea, I reply, surprised by the question. Elaine said it was a family heirloom. Why do you ask? Just curious, she shrugs. I'm gathering information on vintage jewelry for the store. Maybe I could take a look at it for educational purposes. So that's what it was. They hadn't given up on the bracelet. Some other time, I reply coldly. It's late. At home, the first thing I do is go up to the bedroom and get the box. I open it and freeze. The bracelet is gone. I go through all the jewelry, earrings, necklaces, rings, but the bracelet, the one with the pattern and the secret lock, is not there. I sit down on the bed, stunned. When did I last see it? 3 days ago, when I took out the box after the argument with Reggie. The bracelet was there, I remember it clearly. And today they invited me to dinner. They distracted me with conversation, questions. And Poppy asked about the bracelet, checking to see if I had noticed it was missing. Bastards. They stole it. My son and his wife robbed me. I didn't sleep all night. Anger pulsed in my temples, keeping me awake, stealing a family heirloom. My son had never sunk so low before. I wanted to go to his place immediately, make a scene, maybe even call the police. But something stopped me. A cold, calculating voice in my head whispered, Wait, find out more. Don't act rashly. By morning, I decided to call pawn shops and jewelry stores. The bracelet was quite distinctive, with a unique pattern and a small clasp. If Reggie and Poppy had sold it in Cathedral City, I would be able to find out where. I called 3 pawn shops and 2 jewelry stores, to no avail. Then I remembered Amos Holt. We met about 10 years ago when I was inspecting the renovation of the building where his workshop was located. The fussy old man with his left eye perpetually squinted was one of the few who genuinely cared about the quality of his work. We hit it off and saw each other occasionally from then on. I would drop by to have my watch repaired or to have some trinket Elaine bought at a flea market appraised. I dialed the number for Amos's workshop. Long beeps. I was about to hang up when a familiar creaky voice came on the line. Holt's Jewelry Workshop. Amos, it's Theodore Baxter. Remember me? Teddy? Surprise flashed in his voice. What a coincidence. I was just about to call you, really. I was surprised now. What for? He paused for a second, then spoke more quietly. Not over the phone, Teddy. Come to the shop, today if you can. It's important. Did something happen? Yes and yes. He paused again, as if searching for words. Your son and his wife came to see me a couple of days ago. They were selling something. My heart skipped a beat. The gold bracelet? So you know, he said, relief in his voice. Then you should definitely come. Sir, you have to see what was hidden inside the bracelet. Inside? What was he talking about? I'll be there in an hour, I replied and hung up. On the way to Amos's workshop, thoughts swarmed in my head like disturbed bees. What could have been hidden in the bracelet? Precious stones? Some kind of note? And most importantly, did Elaine know about it? Amos's workshop was located in the old part of town, a small room with a display case filled with antique clocks and jewelry. The bell above the door chimed melodiously as I entered. Amos looked out from the back room and waved his hand. Come in here, Teddy. We need to talk in private. I walked behind the counter into a small workshop littered with tools and parts. Amos carefully closed the door, checked the latch, and only then turned to me. "I'm glad you came. When your son brought the bracelet, I didn't immediately realize it was your late wife's jewelry. Do you remember when she came in once to have the clasp replaced?" I nodded. "That was 5 years ago, before she got sick." "It's an unusual bracelet," Amos continued, approaching the safe in the corner of the room. "Old work, good gold. But that's not the point." He opened the safe, took out the familiar gold bracelet, and placed it on the work table covered with black cloth. "Here, look." I took the bracelet, the very one, with the intertwined leaf pattern and the small clasp. How many times had I seen it on Elaine's wrist? Hundreds, thousands of times. It seemed so familiar. But now looking at it, I had the strange feeling that I was seeing it for the first time. "Your son said it was a family heirloom that you decided to sell," Amos said, watching my reaction closely. "He said you gave your permission." I had my doubts. I know how much you cherished Elaine's things, but they weren't asking much for it, and the bracelet is worth much more than that. "They stole it," I hissed through clenched teeth. "From my house." Amos nodded as if he had expected that answer. "I thought so. That's why I kept the bracelet and didn't put it up for sale. And yesterday I decided to take a closer look at it. Sometimes old jewelry holds surprises. And this is what I found." He picked up a jeweler's loupe from the table and handed it to me. "Look at the clasp. See the little button on the side? It's almost invisible." I held the bracelet up to my eyes and looked closely. Sure enough, there was a tiny bump on the side of the clasp that could easily be mistaken for part of the pattern. "Press it," Amos suggested. I pressed it with my finger. There was a faint click, and part of the bracelet slid aside, revealing a small hidden compartment. Something was glinting inside. "What is it?" I muttered, pulling out the contents. "Microfilm," Amos replied. "Sealed in plastic for safekeeping. Old technology, but reliable. Used. Used to store secret information." I was holding a small transparent bag with something resembling a piece of photographic film. Did Elaine know about this hiding place? Did she keep something there herself? "Did you look at what's on it?" I asked, looking up at Amos. He shook his head. "No. You need a special projector or high magnification to see it. But I know someone who can help. If you want, of course." I nodded silently, still stunned by the discovery. Amos picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Lewis? It's Amos. Remember you said you had a microfiche projector? Is it still working?" "Great. We need your help. Right now. It's important." He hung up and turned to me. "Lewis Q, an old photographer and collector. He lives 2 blocks from here. He can show us what's on this film." We left the workshop. Amos carefully locked the door and set off on foot through the narrow streets of the old town. I clutched the plastic bag with the microfilm in my pocket, wondering what might be recorded on it. Family secrets, some important documents. What was Elaine keeping from me? "How long have you known my wife?" I asked Amos as we turned onto a quiet street lined with neat single-story houses. "We met when you were already married," he replied. "She came in to pick out earrings to go with a dress. Then she became a regular customer. She was a lovely woman, always smiling, always friendly." "Did she ever tell you about the bracelet? About its history?" Amos thought for a moment. "Only that it was a family heirloom. Once I offered to buy it. I offered a good price, because work like that is rare. But she refused. She said she would never part with it. It clearly meant more to her than just a piece of jewelry." We approached a small bungalow surrounded by greenery. Amos knocked on the door. It was opened by a gray-haired man wearing thick glasses, behind which his eyes seemed enormous. "Amos," he smiled warmly. "And company. Come in, come in." Lewis's house resembled a museum of old technology. There were cameras from different eras, projectors, enlargers, and some devices whose purpose I couldn't even guess. "Lewis, this is my friend Theodore Baxter." Amos introduced me. "We have some microfilm we need to look at." Of course," Lewis nodded. "Come into the study. The projector is always ready to go." The study turned out to be a small room with thick curtains on the windows. In the center stood a massive table, and on it was a device that looked like an old-fashioned slide projector. "Give me your film." Lewis held out his hand. I took out the bag and handed it to him. He carefully removed the microfilm and examined it through a magnifying glass. Interesting. Old, but well preserved. Now let's see what we have here. He inserted the film into the projector and flipped the switch. An image appeared on the wall. Typewritten text and some diagrams. Can you enlarge it? I asked, moving closer. Lewis adjusted something on the projector, and the image became clearer. I began to read, Agent E's report on Operation Foundation. Target, BTK Construction Corporation. Objective, to obtain technical documentation for the arcade project. I glanced at the date in the upper corner. 1980, a year before my wedding to Elaine. What the hell is this? I muttered. Lewis moved the film to the next frame. A diagram of some building, technical specifications. Another frame, a list of names marked contact person, source of information, subject of surveillance, and among them, my name, Theodore Baxter, civil engineer, development subject. My God, Amos exhaled behind me. A few more frames, photographs of some documents, drawings, and on the last one, a photograph of a young Elaine with a man in a strict suit. They are shaking hands in the background. The logo of a competing construction company, Westwood Engineering. Turn it off, I said hoarsely. Lewis flipped the switch, and the room was plunged into semi-darkness. I sank into a chair, feeling the ground slip away from under my feet. Elaine. My Elaine was an industrial spy? She used me to get information about the company I worked for? Teddy, Amos said cautiously, are you okay? I didn't answer. Fragments of memories swirled in my head. Our first meeting, a chance encounter in a cafe near the office. Her interest in my work. She always asked about projects, about colleagues, how often she would come by after work, how often she would stay at the office waiting for me. BTK Construction, I muttered. I worked there before my wedding. The main project was called Arcade, an innovative shopping center with a unique ceiling system. We worked on it for almost 2 years. And then Westwood Engineering released an almost identical project. The company sued for intellectual property theft, but lost. They couldn't prove it. BTK went bankrupt a year later. And your wife worked for the competition? Lewis asked quietly. Apparently, yes, I smiled bitterly. Apparently, she met me on assignment. She married me on assignment. She gave birth to a child, also on assignment. Don't jump to conclusions. Amos put his hand on my shoulder. Maybe it's not so clear-cut. I shook off his hand. How else can it be understood? Agent E, development target. It's written in plain text. She used me to ruin the company I worked for. But why did she keep this tape? Lewis said thoughtfully. If it's compromising material, it would be more logical to destroy it. That question made me think. Indeed, why did Elaine keep evidence of her betrayal? And why did she keep it so carefully? In a hiding place she carried with her at all times. Insurance, I said slowly. It was her insurance. Evidence she could use against her employers if they decided to get rid of her. Possibly, Amos nodded. Games like that rarely end cleanly. I remembered again how Elaine cherished the bracelet. It protects our family, she said. Without it, everything will fall apart. Now those words took on a sinister meaning. She was afraid that her past would catch up with her, that the people she worked for would come after her or the information she possessed. I need a copy of this tape, I told Lewis. Can you do that? Sure, he nodded, but it will take some time. Come back tomorrow. No, I shook my head. I'll wait. It's too important. While Lewis fiddled with the equipment, Amos and I sat in the living room. I was still trying to wrap my head around the truth that had been revealed. The woman I had lived with for over 30 years, whom I loved, with whom I had raised a son, was she who she claimed to be? Did she really love me? Or was everything, absolutely everything in our life a lie? She could have changed, Amos said quietly, as if reading my thoughts. People change, Teddy. Maybe at first it was an assignment, but then it became real. Or maybe she was just a good actress, I replied bitterly. 30 years? Amos shook his head. No one can pretend for that long. I saw the way she looked at you. It wasn't an act I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that our life wasn't a farce from beginning to end, but doubt gnawed at my soul like acid. "What about Reggie and Poppy?" Amos asked after a long silence. "What are you going to do with them?" I clenched my teeth. In the heat of discovery, I had almost forgotten about the theft. "They'll pay for this," I hissed. "Both of them. But first, I want to know if they knew about the bracelet's contents. Maybe it wasn't just a theft for money. Maybe they were looking for that specific information. Do you think Reggie could have known about my mother's past?" "I don't know," I answered honestly, "but I'll find out. And if he knew, if he became like her—" I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. Lewis returned an hour later, holding 2 envelopes. "It's done. The original and a copy. The quality is good, everything is clear." I took the envelopes and thanked him. Amos and I went out onto the street. It was already dusk, and the streetlights cast a dim light on the sidewalk. "What now?" Amos asked when we reached his workshop. "Now I want to know the whole truth," I replied, hiding the envelopes in my jacket's inside pocket. "About Elaine, about her work, about the people she worked for, and most importantly, whether it ended back then, in the 80s, or continued all these years." "Be careful," Amos said seriously. "If your wife was really involved in industrial espionage, these could be dangerous people." "Elaine has been dead for 3 years," I shrugged. "What difference does it make now?" "For them, maybe a big one." Amos lowered his voice. "If this information is still valuable or could compromise someone." I thought about it. He was right. 35 years had passed, but corporate secrets and betrayals had no statute of limitations, especially when big money was involved. "I'll be careful," I promised. "Thanks for your help, Amos, and for not selling the bracelet." "That's what friends are for," he smiled. "Keep me posted. And if you need help, call me anytime." I nodded, shook his hand, and headed for my car. A plan of action was forming in my head. First, I would find out what had happened to Westwood Engineering and the people who worked there. Then I would find the man in the photo, the one shaking hands with Elaine. And only then would I deal with Reggie and Poppy. On the way home, I thought about my marriage, about the years I had spent with Elaine. Were there signs I should have noticed? Strange phone calls, unexplained absences, sudden business trips? Maybe there were, but I loved her too much to suspect anything was wrong. How ironic. I, a man who had spent his whole life looking for flaws in the work of others, had overlooked the biggest deception in my own life. At home, I went straight to the bedroom and took out Elaine's jewelry box. Now that I knew the truth, it seemed foreign, as if it belonged not to my wife, but to a stranger who bore her name and lived in her body. Who was this woman really? And what else had she been hiding from me all these years? I spent the whole night on my laptop searching for information about Westwood Engineering. The company still existed, having grown into a construction giant with branches all over the country. Scrolling through the pages of the corporate website, I tried to find familiar faces, especially the man in the photo shaking hands with Elaine. To no avail. Too much time had passed, and the management had changed. Towards morning, when it was already getting light outside, I stumbled upon an archived article in a local newspaper. "Westwood Engineering's Revolutionary Arcata Project Wins National Award," read the headline. The date was 1982. The article mentioned a brilliant engineering approach and an innovative floor system. That was exactly what I had been working on at BTK Construction. I felt sick. One by one, images of colleagues who had lost their jobs after the company went bankrupt came to mind. Jim Parker, the chief designer, died of a heart attack 2 months after the firm closed. They said the stress had gotten the better of him. Tom Wilshire drank himself to death. Sandy Collins lost her house because she couldn't pay the mortgage. And at that time, I was building a happy family with a woman who had a hand in their tragedies, who used me to destroy what we had built over the years. When I met Elaine, she was working in an art gallery. At least that's what she said. Now I realize it was the perfect cover. Who would suspect a sweet girl who knows art of industrial espionage? After the wedding, she quit her job, saying she wanted to devote herself to the family. Or maybe her mission was simply accomplished. At 9 in the morning, sleep-deprived but determined, I called work and took the day off. Then I dialed the number of an old acquaintance, Garth Reeves. We had worked together at BTK, then went their separate ways to different companies, but kept in touch. Garth had always been meticulous. with a phenomenal memory for faces and events. Garth, this is Teddy Baxter. We need to meet. Urgently. Teddy? His voice sounded surprised. Has something happened? You could say that. It concerns BTK in the arcade project. A long pause, then a heavy sigh. Why stir up the past, Teddy? It's been over 30 years. Trust me, it's important. I found information about how Westwood got our designs. Another pause. Okay, I'm retired now. I have plenty of free time. Where shall we meet? We agreed to meet at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. I arrived first and chose a table in the corner, away from the other customers. Garth showed up 15 minutes later, still lanky but completely gray, and with deep wrinkles around his eyes. You don't look very happy, Teddy, he said instead of greeting me, sitting down opposite me. What's wrong? I took out the envelope with a copy of the microfilm and put it on the table. Take a look. Garth put on his glasses, took out the film, and held it up to the light. His face changed, becoming harder. Where did you get this? It doesn't matter. Do you recognize the documents? He nodded silently, continuing to study the frames. The arcade blueprints, specifications, load-bearing structure calculations. This is my work, Teddy. He looked up, his eyes filled with shock. Where did you get this? I took a deep breath, gathering my courage. My wife, Elaine. She worked at Westwood. Garth froze as if struck by lightning. Elaine? The lovely Elaine who brought homemade cookies to company parties? Who? He paused, apparently remembering that she was dead. I'm sorry, Teddy, but this must be some kind of mistake. She couldn't have. Look at the last frame, I said quietly. He looked at the film and stared. He swallowed hard. Damn, that's Roger Westwood, founder of Westwood Engineering. Do you know him? Not personally, but everyone in the industry knew him. A ruthless businessman. They said he would do anything for profit. Garth looked at the photo again. And next to him, is that definitely Elaine? I nodded. Garth took off his glasses and rubbed his nose. God, Teddy. I'm so sorry. We sat in silence. I tried to wrap my head around the fact that my life, my marriage, had been based on betrayal. What are you going to do? Garth finally asked. I don't know. She's been dead for 3 years. What's the point? What about Roger Westwood? Is he still alive? I shook my head. He died in 2015. His son runs the company now. So no retribution, Garth said with a bitter smile. Although, maybe you should make this information public. Let everyone know how the Westwood Empire was built. And tarnish Elaine's name? I was surprised at my own words. Why was I still defending her? She tarnished it herself, Teddy. Garth looked at me with sympathy. Sorry for being blunt, but it's true. He was right. And yet something was holding me back. Maybe the memory of the good times? Or just a reluctance to air the family's dirty laundry in public. Do you think she really loved me? I asked suddenly. Or was that also part of the operation? Garth was silent for a long time, then said cautiously, I'm no expert on these matters, Teddy. But you lived together for over 30 years. You raised a son. If it was just a job, I don't think it would have lasted that long. His words echoed what Amos had said. Maybe they were right. Maybe it started as an assignment, but then it turned into real life, real feelings. I wanted to believe that. I had to believe it. Otherwise, my whole life would turn into a farce. Thanks, Garth. I reached for the tape. Sorry to bother you. Always here for you, buddy. He shook my hand. And whatever you decide, I'll support you. Just don't do anything stupid, okay? I nodded, even though I already had a plan in mind. After the cafe, I went to the city library. They had binders of local newspapers, including from the time when BTK went bankrupt. I wanted to find more information about Roger Westwood, the company, and the arcade project. The librarian, an elderly woman with kind eyes, helped me find the binders I needed. I spent several hours looking through the yellowed pages. Here is a photo of the grand opening of the Arcata Shopping Center. Roger Westwood cuts the ribbon and smiles at the camera. And here is a small note about the bankruptcy of BTK. Just a few lines, as if the collapse of the company and the broken destinies meant nothing. In one of the newspapers, I found an interview with Westwood. The secret to success is innovation, he said. It's the ability to see what others miss. Hypocritical bastard. His innovations were stolen from us, with the help of my wife. By evening, I had gathered enough information to be sure. The microfilm was genuine. Elaine really did work for Westwood Engineering, spying on BTK, using me as a source of information. The truth I had refused to accept for so long was now irrefutable. But one question remained. Did my son know about his mother's past? And if so, was he somehow connected to Westwood? Could the theft of the bracelet be something more than just an attempt to get money for Poppy's business? On the way home, I called Amos. Do you think Reggie and Poppy could have known about the contents of the bracelet? It's hard to say, he replied after a pause. When they brought it in, they just wanted to sell it. They didn't ask if they could open it or examine it closely. They just said it was a family heirloom that you had decided to sell. So they didn't know about the hiding place. Or they were very good at pretending, Amos added. What are you going to do with them? I haven't decided yet, but in any case, I'll talk to them first. I parked outside the house and sat in the car for a long time, gathering my thoughts. Then I took out my phone and dialed my son's number. Reggie, we need to talk. Now come to my house with Poppy. Dad, is something wrong? His voice sounded alarmed. Yes, something is wrong. I'll be waiting for you in an hour. I hung up without waiting for an answer. I went into the house and poured myself a whiskey. For the first time in a long time, I felt like a drink. I sat down in the living room chair and waited. They arrived exactly an hour later. I heard the car pull up, the door slam. The doorbell rang. I didn't move. Come in. They entered, Reggie first, Poppy behind him, both with tense expressions. Dad. Reggie took a step forward. What's going on? I silently took the gold bracelet out of my pocket and placed it on the coffee table. They both stared at the jewelry, shock reflected on their faces. Where, Reggie began, but I interrupted him. Where did I get it? From Amos Holt, an old friend you tried to sell it to. I looked directly at my son. You stole it from my house. From your mother's jewelry box, Reggie turned pale, and Poppy grabbed his arm as if seeking support. Dad, I can explain, he began. Really? I smirked. What exactly can you explain? How you stole from your own father? How you sold a family heirloom for, what? Money for your wife's latest whim? It's not a whim, Poppy exclaimed. The store is a serious business. We took the bracelet because we needed startup capital. We were going to pay you back. Buy it back. Shut up, I raised my hand, stopping her. I'm not talking to you. She backed away, biting her lip. Reggie stood with his head down. We didn't want to steal from you. It's just, you refused to help, and the bracelet was just sitting there. Mom would understand. Don't you dare speak for your mother, I hissed through clenched teeth. You have no idea what she would have understood and what she wouldn't. Actually, I do, Reggie said suddenly, raising his head. A challenge appeared in his eyes. She always wanted me to be happy, to have what I wanted. Unlike you, I looked at my son and saw Elaine's features in him. The same stubborn set of his lips, the same look in his eyes, and the same ability to justify any of his actions. You know what I found out? I asked, feeling anger rising inside me. Do you know why your mother cherished that bracelet so much? Reggie frowned. Because it's a family heirloom. Her grandmother brought it from Europe. That's a lie, I snapped. Like so many other things she said. There was a secret compartment in the bracelet, Reggie. Microfilm with evidence of industrial espionage. Your mother was working for my company's competitors. She used me to steal confidential designs. Reggie and Poppy looked at me suspiciously. What kind of nonsense is that? Reggie muttered. Mom wasn't a spy. She worked at an art gallery when you met. That was a cover story, I said with a bitter smile. A cover. She actually worked for Westwood Engineering, the company that ruined my employer by stealing our designs. With her help, Poppy looked from me to Reggie, clearly not understanding what we were talking about. But something flashed in my son's eyes. Recognition. Fear. Did you know? I asked, watching his reaction closely. Did she tell you? No, he replied too quickly. Of course not. She never. You're lying, I stood up and moved closer to him. You knew, or you guessed. That's why you stole the bracelet? That's why you were looking for that tape? Dad, you're delusional. Reggie took a step back. We took the bracelet because we needed the money. That's the only reason. I looked into his eyes, trying to see the truth. My son had always been a poor liar, but now I couldn't tell for sure whether he was telling the truth or lying. Maybe Elaine had never told him about her past. Or maybe she had told him everything, and now he was trying to hide it. You know what? I turned away and picked up my glass of whiskey. It doesn't matter. You're both thieves. You stole from me not just a piece of gold trinket, but the memory of the woman I loved. Despite all her deceit, Dad, please. Reggie took a step toward me. We didn't mean to hurt you. I swear. We just... desperate. That's no excuse, I snapped. Nothing excuses betrayal. You never understood us, Poppy suddenly shouted. Neither me nor Reggie. You're always criticizing, always condemning. No wonder we didn't want to ask you for help. Then why did you ask? I smirked. And why, when you were refused, did you decide to just take what didn't belong to you? Because we needed the money. Her voice rang with desperation. Because this is our last chance. I found the perfect location, the perfect suppliers. Like with the flower shop? I interrupted. Like with the photo studio? With the catering? How many more last chances will there be, Poppy? She fell silent, pressing her lips together. Reggie put his hand on her shoulder. Dad, we really were going to return the bracelet. We were going to buy it back when the shop started making a profit. What if it hadn't? I shook my head. It doesn't matter. I'm taking the bracelet, and I want you both out of my house. Now. You're kicking us out? Reggie looked at me suspiciously. Your own son? I'm kicking out thieves, I said firmly. Who happen to be my relatives? You can't do this to us, Poppy exclaimed. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other. I turned away, signaling that the conversation was over. Leave, both of them. They stood there for a while longer. Then Reggie sighed heavily. Let's go, Poppy. We're not welcome here. They headed for the door. At the threshold, Reggie turned around. You'll regret this, Dad. When you cool down, give me a call. We'll talk like adults. I didn't answer. The door closed behind them, and the house fell silent again. I sat down in a chair, clutching the bracelet in my hand. The very one that Elaine wore all the time. The very one in which she kept the evidence of her betrayal. I ran my finger over the intricate pattern and found the small button that opened the secret compartment. I clicked it open. It was empty. The microfilm was now with me, in a safe place. I closed the compartment and placed the bracelet on the table. It glistened in the lamplight, a golden reminder of the lie that had been the foundation of my family life, and of the new lie that had destroyed what was left of it. Betrayal, I thought. Is it hereditary? From mother to son? From generation to generation? Or is it just a coincidence that my son turned out to be as dishonest as his mother? I didn't know the answer. I only knew that now I was alone. Finally and irrevocably alone. After breaking up with my son, the house was completely empty. The emptiness settled not only in the rooms, but also inside me. I paced from corner to corner, unable to find my place, going over the events of the last few days in my mind, trying to piece together the whole truth about the woman with whom I had lived for more than 30 years. At first, I just wanted to forget everything, hide the bracelet and microfilm away, never return to this story. After all, Elaine is dead. What does it matter what she did almost 40 years ago? But the worm of doubt was already gnawing at my mind. If she lied about her past, what else did she lie about? Was our life together real or just a continuation of her mission? Did she truly love me? And Reggie, was he conceived out of love or as part of her legend? I had to find out the truth. All of it, without exception. First, I decided to find the people Elaine had worked with before we met. She said she worked at the Elysium Art Gallery, a small private establishment in the old part of town. I had been there several times at the beginning of our relationship and remembered the tall, bearded man who owned the gallery. What was his name? Benjamin? Bernard? The internet told me that the gallery had closed long ago, but I managed to find a mention of an exhibition in 1980 where Bernard Hines was listed among the organizers. A search on social media yielded no results. Either the man with that name did not use the internet, or he was no longer alive. The phone book proved more useful. Bernard Hines, 78 years old, lived in the Sunny Valley retirement home on the northern outskirts of Cathedral City. Deciding not to call ahead, I drove there right away. Sunny Valley turned out to be a pleasant place, a neat three-story building surrounded by blooming gardens. At the reception desk, a young woman with a name tag that read Amelia greeted me with a smile. "How can I help you?" "I'm looking for Bernard Hines. Does he live here?" "Yes, Mr. Hines is here. Are you a relative?" "An old acquaintance," I replied. "I would very much like to see him." She looked at the computer. "Mr. Hines is in the common room right now. There's a painting class going on. I can take you there." I thanked her and followed her down the bright hallway. Voices and laughter came from the open doors, and somewhere a piano was playing. Not a bad place to grow old, I thought. The common room was a spacious room with large windows. A dozen elderly people sat at easels, trying to paint a vase of fruit. Among them, I immediately recognized Bernard, tall, stooped, with a gray beard, but still with the same piercing blue eyes I remembered from our rare encounters. "Mr. Hines, you have a visitor," Amelia said. Bernard looked up and stared at me. "My God," he muttered. "Teddy Baxter? Is it really you?" I was surprised that he recognized me. We had seen each other maybe 5 times, and more than 30 years had passed since then. "Hello, Mr. Hines." "Yes, it's me." "What brings you here?" He put down his brush and wiped his hands on a napkin. "Have a seat, my friend. Amelia, please bring us some tea." I sat down next to him, not quite sure how to start the conversation. "How's Elaine?" he asked, beating me to it. "Still as beautiful as ever?" A bitter lump rose in my throat. "Elaine died 3 years ago. Cancer." Bernard's face changed, and he lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. She was a special woman." There was something strange in his voice. It wasn't just grief for a lost loved one, but something more, a subtext known only to him. "That's what I wanted to talk about," I said, lowering my voice. "About Elaine. About what she was really like." Bernard tensed up and glanced around quickly. "Let's go to my room. It's quieter there." We went up to the second floor. Bernard's room was small but cozy. There were paintings on the walls, apparently his own. On the table by the window was a stack of art books. "Have a seat," he said, pointing to a chair. "So what do you want to know about Elaine?" I decided not to beat around the bush. Did she really work at your gallery? Or was it a cover? Bernard looked at me for a long time, then sighed heavily. "So you know." "Know what?" "About her other job." So I was right. My heart skipped a beat. "I found the microfilm," I said, "in her bracelet. Documents about industrial espionage, about how she used me to get information for Westwood Engineering." Bernard nodded, his eyes clouding over. "She kept that tape all these years?" "Stupid, very stupid." "You knew all this time?" "Of course I knew." He smiled grimly. "The gallery was the perfect cover. People come and go. No one is surprised by strange visitors or unusual packages. And I was her curator." "Curator?" I asked, feeling a chill inside. "That's what it was called. I coordinated her actions, gave her assignments, and received her reports. I had been working for Westwood longer than she had, since 1975. I looked at this elderly man and couldn't believe it. Here he was, the man behind the whole operation, the man who had sent Elaine to me, the man who had destroyed so many lives. "Why?" was all I could manage to say. "Why did you do it?" "Money, of course," he shrugged. "Roger Westwood paid generously, and in the 70s and 80s, art galleries had a hard time. We had to survive somehow." "And for money you were willing to destroy other people's lives?" Bernard grimaced. "Don't dramatize it, Teddy. It was just business. Everyone did it. Industrial espionage was commonplace. Roger just happened to be smarter and more ruthless than the others." "And Elaine?" My voice trembled. "Was she doing it for money too?" He paused, as if weighing whether to tell the truth. "Not only that, she had obligations, debts. Her father owed a large sum of money and got into trouble. Roger offered to solve these problems in exchange for Elaine's services. What services? I was almost afraid to hear the answer. She was smart, beautiful, charming, the perfect agent. She could get close to any man. He stopped when he saw the look on my face. I'm sorry, but you asked. That's how it was. It wasn't love at first sight. It wasn't a chance encounter. It was all planned from the beginning. But then, Bernard continued, something unexpected happened. She fell in love with you for real, I smiled bitterly. How convenient. No, really. He leaned forward. I was her supervisor. I knew her better than anyone. She changed after meeting you. She became softer, happier. And when the mission was complete, when she was supposed to disappear, she refused. What? Roger wanted her to switch to another target, but she refused. She said she wanted a normal life. With you. I tried to digest what I had heard. Could it be that among all the lies there was a real feeling? Roger was furious, Bernard continued. He threatened her, tried to blackmail her. But she was stubborn, and she had a trump card, the microfilm, I guessed. Exactly. Documentary evidence of industrial espionage. If it came to light, Roger would face not only the ruin of his reputation, but also prison. So he backed down. He let her out of the game. That's it? I couldn't believe it. He just let her go? Bernard shook his head. Not quite. He set a condition. She had to keep the bracelet with the microfilm and never part with it. It was a kind of guarantee of her silence. As long as she had the film, she was under control. After all, if she made the information public, she would give herself away. Now everything fell into place. That's why Elaine cherished the bracelet so much. That's why she never took it off. It wasn't a talisman, but a chain with which Roger tied her to himself even after she left the game. And she agreed? I asked. What choice did she have? She wanted a new life with you, and she was willing to do anything for it. I didn't know whether to believe him. I didn't know what I was hearing was true, and what was another lie. There's something else, Bernard said after a long pause. Something you need to know. What? Before she died, she came to see me. I froze. Elaine visited this man, her former curator. When? It was about a month before she died, Bernard continued. She already knew she was doomed. The chemotherapy wasn't working, and she wanted to confess, I think. About what? About everything. About how she used you at first. About how she came to truly love you. About how she suffered from guilt all these years. I remembered the last months of her life. She was so quiet, so distant. I thought it was because of her illness, because of her fear of death. Or maybe she was preparing to confess. Was she going to tell me the truth before she left? She said her greatest fear was that you would find out the truth and hate her, Bernard continued. That your whole life would be ruined because of what happened at the very beginning. Why didn't she tell me herself, I asked, feeling a lump in my throat. Why did she keep quiet? She chickened out, I guess, Bernard shrugged. Or maybe she didn't want to hurt you before she left. Who knows? But she loved you, Teddy. She really loved you. I'm sure of that. I sat in the reception area of the law firm Parsons and Partners, clutching a folder of documents. The bright room, leather chairs, and soft music all created an atmosphere of solidity and reliability. It was exactly what I needed right now. A week had passed since I met Bernard Hines and learned the whole truth about Elaine. A week of heavy thoughts, sleepless nights, and painful decisions. I reread her letter dozens of times, trying to find confirmation of Bernard's words in it, trying to understand if there was anything real in our relationship or if it was all a lie from the beginning to the end. I fell in love with you, truly, she wrote, and I wanted to believe her. But how can you believe someone who has been deceiving you from the very beginning? And then there was a call from Reggie. He left a message on the answering machine, his voice guilty and ingratiating. Dad, it's me. Listen, Poppy and I are very sorry about what happened, really. What we did with the bracelet, it's unforgivable, but we want to make it up to you. Maybe we could have dinner together? Talk? I'm ready to apologize in person. Call me back, okay? I didn't call back. Instead, I contacted a lawyer and made an appointment. It was time to put an end to this. Mr. Baxter? A young secretary appeared in front of me. "Mr. Parsons is ready to see you." The lawyer's office was as impressive as the reception area. Arthur Parsons himself, a short, heavy-set man in his 60s, greeted me with a firm handshake. "Good to see you, Teddy. Have a seat." We had known each other for many years. He had helped me with legal matters when I was a police inspector. Later, he had drawn up the papers for my house. And now... So, he sat down at his desk and folded his hands. "You want to change your will?" "Yes," I nodded. "Completely." He took a folder with my previous will out of the desk drawer. "Right now, you have one heir named, your son, Reginald Baxter. He gets the house, the savings, and all your personal belongings. That's the standard arrangement. What do you want to change?" "Everything," I said firmly. "I want to disinherit him." "Completely." Parsons raised his eyebrows in surprise. "That's a serious decision, Teddy." "May I ask why?" "Personal differences," I replied evasively. "Let's just say he did something I can't forgive." "I see," Parsons nodded, although his face showed that he didn't quite understand. "And to whom do you want to leave your property?" I had been thinking about this question all week. I had no other relatives. I had no close friends to whom I wanted to leave my inheritance. But I found a solution, a charitable foundation to help victims of unscrupulous developers. Parsons blinked in surprise. "I didn't know such a thing existed." "It needs to be created," I explained. "I want the house to be sold after my death and the money to go toward creating the foundation. It will provide legal and financial assistance to people who have been victims of fraud in the construction industry." I didn't explain to Parsons why I chose this particular cause. I didn't tell him about Westwood Engineering, about industrial espionage, about Elaine and her role in the bankruptcy of BTK Construction. It was my little revenge, not on Elaine, no, but rather on the system that allowed people like Roger Westwood to destroy other people's lives with impunity. "That's, unusual," Parsons scratched his chin, "but doable. We'll need to set up a trust fund, appoint trustees, draft a charter. It will take time and incur additional costs." "Money is not a problem," I waved him off. "And I have plenty of time. I want everything done right." "Okay," he began to take notes. "What about personal belongings? Your late wife's jewelry, for example?" I thought about it. The gold bracelet, what to do with it? Leave it in the fund? Destroy it? Neither option seemed right. The gold bracelet with the pattern, I finally decided, should be transferred to the City Police Museum as material evidence of a historical case of industrial espionage. Along with the microfilm that I keep at home in my safe. Parsons raised his eyebrows in surprise but didn't ask any questions. "I'll make a note of that." "And the rest of the jewelry? That should go to the fund too. Let them sell it." We spent another hour discussing the details of the new will. When everything was agreed upon, Parsons leaned back in his chair. "We'll have the documents ready by the end of the week. You'll need to come in to sign them in front of witnesses." "Thank you, Arthur," I said, standing up and extending my hand. "And one more thing. I'd prefer that these changes remain confidential, at least during my lifetime." "Of course," he shook my hand. "Everything will remain confidential." Leaving the office, I felt a strange sense of relief. It was as if the heavy burden I had been carrying all these days had become a little lighter. The decision had been made. It wasn't the easiest, but it was necessary. On the way home, my phone rang. It was Reggie's number. I hesitated, but finally answered. "Yes? Dad, finally." His voice sounded relieved. "I've been calling several times." "Poppy and I are very worried." "Really?" I asked coldly. "What are you worried about? That you got caught stealing? Or that you won't get the money for your store now?" "Dad, please." His voice took on a pleading tone. "We're terribly sorry. What we did, it was unforgivable. But we want to make it right. Can we meet? Talk in person?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to just hang up and forget he existed. But another part, maybe I should give him a chance to explain. Maybe he was really sorry. "Okay," I finally said. "Come over tonight." Around 7. "Thanks, Dad," he exhaled. "We'll be there. And we'll explain everything. I promise." I hung up, feeling vaguely uneasy. What was he going to explain? The theft of the bracelet? Or something else? Did he know about my mother's past? About her connection to Westwood? About his own connection to the company that had ruined so many people's lives? At home, I took the microfilm and Elaine's letter out of the safe. I reread the last lines. Forgive me, if you can, and know that no matter what, I loved you. Truly. That is the only truth I have never doubted. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to know for sure that at least something in our life had been real. At 7 o'clock, Reggie's car pulled up. I watched from the window as he and Poppy got out and approached the door uncertainly. Poppy was saying something, waving her arms. Reggie nodded, looking depressed. The doorbell rang. I opened the door, standing on the threshold, not inviting them in. Good evening. Dad? Reggie took a step forward. Can we come in? I stepped back, letting them into the house. We went into the living room, where I pointed them to the sofa and sat down in the armchair opposite. So, I said, folding my hands in my lap, you wanted to explain yourselves. They looked at each other. Poppy looked uncertain. Reggie looked determined. He took a deep breath. Dad, we made a terrible mistake. Stealing Mom's bracelet, it was unforgivable. We were desperate. We needed money for the store. But that's no excuse. I agree, I nodded. No excuse. But we want to make it right, Poppy quickly added. We found an investor for the store. A real investor. And as soon as we start making a profit, we'll pay you back for the bracelet. With interest, I smiled. An investor? And who is that? They exchanged glances again, and something flashed in their eyes that made me wary. A businessman, Reggie replied evasively. He saw Poppy's business plan and was impressed. So impressed that he decided to invest in a vintage clothing store run by a woman with no retail experience? I shook my head. I don't believe it. It's true, Poppy exclaimed. He believed in me. In my taste, in my vision. And what is the name of this trusting investor? They exchanged glances again. Then Reggie lowered his eyes and said, Victor Jenkins. I felt a chill run through me. Jenkins. The very same Jenkins from Westwood Engineering. Roger Westwood's former deputy. I see, I said slowly. And how did you interest Victor Jenkins, Reggie? With your connections at the hardware store? Access to supply information? Reggie turned pale. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, I leaned forward. I know who Jenkins is. I know who he works for. And I know you work for them too. Just like your mother did. A heavy silence hung in the room. Poppy looked from me to Reggie, clearly confused and not understanding what was going on. But Reggie, I could see the shock in his eyes and fear. You know, he whispered. I know, I said firmly. I know Elaine was an industrial spy. I know she worked for Westwood Engineering. I know she used me to get information about the arcade project. And I know you followed in her footsteps. No, he exclaimed. That's not true. I'm not a spy. No, I smiled bitterly. Then why did Jenkins decide to invest in your wife's business? Out of charity? Because, he paused, clearly searching for the right words. Because I provide them with certain services, but it's not espionage, just consulting. Information about prices, about suppliers. Nothing illegal. Industrial espionage is rarely directly illegal, I remarked. It just destroys lives, like it destroyed the lives of dozens of people when Westwood stole BTK Construction's designs, with your mother's help. I didn't know, Reggie's voice sounded desperate. I swear I didn't know about it until recently. When did you find out? I asked. When Roger Westwood told you? During one of your meetings? He looked at me with wide eyes. How did you? It doesn't matter, I cut him off. What matters is that, after learning the truth, you didn't stop working with them. On the contrary, you deepened your cooperation. You allowed them to use you just as they used your mother. That's not true, he exclaimed. Mom didn't want to work for them. They forced her. She had no choice. You did, I said coldly. And you made it. Poppy, finally realizing what was going on, intervened. Wait, I don't understand. What spying? What meetings? What are you talking about? Poppy, please. Reggie raised his hand, stopping her. I'll explain later. He turned to me. Dad, listen. I really didn't know the whole story. Roger, Mr. Westwood found me when I was 16. He said he was a friend of my mother's and wanted to help me with my career. I was flattered. A rich, successful man had taken notice of me. Then later he started talking about Mom, about how she worked for him, but he presented it as normal business, as if she were a consultant, an advisor, not a spy. And you believed him? I shook my head. Didn't you find it strange that she never mentioned her work at Westwood? That she hid it from me all these years? I I didn't think about it, he admitted. And then, when she got sick, it wasn't the time. And after her death, when Roger or Jenkins offered you a job, you didn't think about that either. Reggie lowered his head. I was in a difficult situation. Financially, Poppy and I had debts, and they offered good money for simple work. Just reporting information about deliveries, prices, new tenders, nothing that couldn't be found in open sources. And the bracelet? I asked quietly. Why did you steal the bracelet? For money for the store? Or did Jenkins ask you to find it? Reggie and Poppy exchanged quick glances. Jenkins, Reggie finally admitted, he said there might be something valuable in the bracelet, that Mom had stored some information in it. He offered good money if we brought him the bracelet. Money that would go to Poppy's shop. And you, I turned to Poppy, did you know you were participating in industrial espionage? No, she exclaimed. I swear. Reggie said it was just an old piece of jewelry that you don't wear anyway. You wouldn't have objected if we had asked, but you've been so unapproachable lately. She shot her husband an accusing look. I had no idea there was some kind of microfilm or whatever in there. I looked at them both, a pathetic, frightened couple, cornered by their own greed and stupidity. My son and his wife, the people who were supposed to be my family. Leave, I said quietly. Dad, please, Reggie leaned forward. Let me explain. I didn't mean to. Explain what? I interrupted. How you betrayed me. How you betrayed my mother's memory. How you sold yourself to people who used her and threw her away. I didn't know. His voice sounded desperate. I swear I didn't know the whole truth until recently. And when you found out, what did you do? I asked. Did you stop working with them? Did you come to me with your confession? Number. You stole my mother's bracelet to sell it to people who destroyed so many lives, including mine. I'll fix everything, he almost begged. I swear, I'll cut off all contact with Westwood. I'll find another job. I'll return the money they paid me. It's too late, I shook my head. Too late. I changed my will, Reggie. You're no longer my heir. Neither you nor your wife will get a cent of my estate. He froze as if he had been punched in the gut. What? But why? Because you showed me who you really are, I said firmly. A thief, a traitor, a man without principles, a man willing to sell his own father for money, just like your mother once did. Don't you dare talk about her like that. Reggie suddenly jumped up. She loved you. She always said you were the best thing that ever happened to her. And she lied to me from the very beginning, I said with a bitter smile. Just like you. She was in a desperate situation, Reggie shouted. Her father, my grandfather, was being blackmailed. They threatened to put him in jail for his debts. She agreed to work for Westwood to save him. And what's your excuse, son? I asked. Who were you saving by selling information to competitors? Your pride? Your ego? Or did you just want quick money for your wife's latest whim? Poppy jumped up, her eyes burning with anger. Don't you dare say that. Reggie did everything for me. For us. He wanted us to have a normal life, without constant debt, without humiliation. And for that, he was willing to betray his own father, I nodded. What a beautiful couple. You deserve each other. Dad, please. Reggie sank back onto the sofa, his voice trembling. I know I did the wrong thing. I know I let you down. But is this really the end? Are you really ready to cut your own son out of your life? I looked at him for a long time. At his face, so similar to Elaine's. At his eyes full of despair and fear. My son, my flesh and blood. The only family I had left. But it was too late. Too many lies, too much betrayal. I couldn't forgive him. I didn't want to forgive him. Yes, I finally said, I'm ready. You made that choice, Reggie. Not me. What now? He asked quietly. What will happen to us? I don't know, I answered honestly. And frankly, I don't care anymore. Your life is your concern. Mine is mine. From this moment on, our paths diverge. You can't just throw us out of your life, Poppy exclaimed. We're family. No, I shook my head. We're not a family. Families don't betray each other. Families don't steal from each other. Families don't lie to each other for decades. I stood up, making it clear that the conversation was over. Now leave. And don't come back. Reggie also stood up, his face pale, his eyes red. Is that your final word? Yes, I said firmly. Final. They silently headed for the door. At the threshold, Reggie turned around. She really loved you, Dad. Whatever happened in the beginning, whatever she did, in the end, she truly loved you. And I love you too. No matter what. I didn't answer. The door closed behind them, and the house was silent again. I went back to the living room, sat down in an armchair, and stared into space for a long time. That was it. The end of a story that began almost 40 years ago when a young woman on assignment from her employer approached a young engineer in a cafe. Stories of love, betrayal, lies, and perhaps regret. Stories of my life. I took out Elaine's letter and reread the last lines again. Forgive me if you can. And know that despite everything, I loved you. Truly. That is the only truth I have never doubted. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to know for sure. But now it didn't matter. Elaine was dead. Reggie had betrayed me. I was alone. And strangely enough, that thought no longer frightened me. Loneliness seemed not like a curse, but like liberation. Liberation from lies, from toxic relationships, from the burden of the past that I had carried all these years. Life wasn't over. There were still years ahead of me. Maybe not many, but they were there. And I could live them my way. Honestly, freely, without the shadow of past deceptions. I folded the letter and hid it with the microfilm in the safe. Tomorrow I had to stop by Parsons to sign a new will. Then maybe contact Garth Reeves to talk about setting up that fund. Start something new, something worthwhile. And now just sit in silence. Think about the life that was, about the life that is yet to come, about the fact that the truth, no matter how bitter, is still better than the sweetest lie. Because only in truth is there freedom, and I was finally free.